Uniform 152 from Tango Uniform 6, sir. Tango Uniform 6, over. RV location, over. Only hit 125. 125, did you overhear that, over? Uniform negative, did you say again, over? Roger, around Botanic Avenue there, over. Roger, now, over. Roger, is it a sheriff? Bridge on the road.
A policeman's been killed as his car was blown apart by a bomb in Lisburn's busy Sloane Street, and a UDR soldier's been shot dead outside a shoe shop at the Park Centre of Belfast.
The north of Ireland. 20 years of war, 3,000 deaths, more than 30,000 injured, and countless arrests and years of prison. A war in which, day in and day out, the British security forces confront the Irish nationalist movement and its hidden secret army, the IRA, the Irish Republican Army.
On the streets outside there, in West Belfast, there were guns, there were explosives, there were people preparing operations to put together against British troops. This is an IRA active service unit operating in St James's area of West Belfast. They're preparing themselves for an ambush on British troops. They may be mobile, they may be on foot. To a visitor coming to West Belfast, this type of operation must seem amazing or even impossible when you take into consideration the amount of surveillance, the amount of armed troops there are on the ground. Yet, day in, day out, this type of operation takes place. At this present moment,
in the 1970s, Brendan Hughes was considered by the British Army to be an important leader of the IRA. Arrested in 1972, he soon escaped from the high-security prison of Long Kesh. Recaptured in 1973, he has spent 13 years in prison.
The minds of the people of West Belfast. The best will in the world cannot stop what is happening here because they do not have the minds of the people.
Ireland was divided in 1922 after 6 years of war between the British Army and the IRA. In national elections at that time, the Irish voted overwhelmingly in favour of independence. What followed was a compromise in which London agreed to withdraw from the 26 counties of Southern Ireland. In exchange, Britain was to maintain control of 6 counties in the north. 6 counties that contained most of the country's industry, as well as a majority of loyalists, descendants of British settlers who wished to remain in the United Kingdom. With the support of London, the loyalists in Northern Ireland were to control all economic and political powers. Meanwhile, the nationalists who had fought for a united Ireland were to suffer from systematic discrimination in housing and employment. Furthermore, special laws permitted arbitrary arrest and imprisonment of political opponents. Not surprisingly, Northern Ireland is a state that has never been at peace.
Flashpoint area we do have here, along here, this is a lot of shooting takes place along this area here. So we've always to be very careful when patrolling in this particular area.
Papa 70, Roger.
You may notice the special protected glass we have in our vehicles here. These are actually built up to help to prevent or protect us from drogue bombs and that type of thing. These are the new bombs they throw at us, which can go through steel 1.5 inches thick. So these vehicles are trying to be give us some protection from those type of devices.
The war in Northern Ireland has ironically become one of the state's biggest industries. 20,000 soldiers, 13,000 policemen, 3,000 prison guards, and countless other security posts. A major source of employment for the loyalist community. But the work is dangerous. Members of the security forces are daily targets of the IRA.
Uniform Red 1, arrival. Roger, Red 1. Alpha Delta, Alpha Delta, Alpha Delta 161 over. Stand over.
See the
Could you send
people thrown by that wall. The snipe from
Sometimes they would reckon that the police will stop at such and such a point, say that at a lamppost, and at that lamppost in the waste bin, you'll find maybe a bomb in it which will explode. They would just try and get as many casualties as possible.
Well, what's happening at the moment is we have the area cleared. There's been a call has been received from 2 anonymous callers stating that there's a 200-pound bomb in this premises here. We have now carried out a cursory search of the area, and we've cleared all vehicles, as you can see. This is happening every night of the week in Belfast. It's one of these things which we've come to live with. You can see now how quickly we got here, and they're able to clear areas in the shortest possible time. Therefore, if a bomb does go off, to minimise injury.
Patricia McDade and Cathy Stanton, Irish nationalists, were arrested in July 1983 carrying explosives. 4 years prison.
Explosives and box timers.
And they were on us and put us down, and then the jeeps came and they waited a while, and then there was 2 other guards caught round the house, round the street we came out of, and they brought us round now and they lifted them and then brought us to Wigburn Barracks, and then from there on to Castlereagh. So they did.
I think the peelers were more nervous than we were. They were shaking. They obviously knew what we had, you know. And
when you join up, you're expecting either to be lifted or, you know, you're not given any false pretenses about this life being involved. Like, you know, that you're going to end up in jail sometime or dead or whatever. Like, you know, the consequences like you're taking on.
These are the bullet holes. They were fired on an upward angle because obvious whoever knew who done it knew the size of Brenton. So they fired upward. As you can see, the strike marks up here and here. And the extensive damage that is done around the hall. There's also a hole here.
Brenton Davidson, member of the IRA, killed by loyalists in July 1988.
Before Brenton got the door open, the gunman opened fire. The bullets came through the door, and one hit Brenton on the forehead. His window, bulletproof. The gunman obviously not ever been in the flat before, knowing that there must have been collusion with the security forces on this point.
This time I'd been on the run. The British troops were looking for me, but I was able to get through the roadblocks and so forth with the new ID I'd taken on. While we were there, on the Malone Road and moving about and operating in that area, we were able to bug Lisburn Army headquarters, and every 3 or 4 days I would collect the tapes and listen to conversations that was taking place in Lisburn Army headquarters. On one of the recordings, we heard an informer reporting in to his contact in Army headquarters of information that led us to believe that the informer was getting close to where we were on the Malone Road. So when the arrest took place on the Malone Road, it was a surprise, but it wasn't a shock. We were taken to the police station, to an interrogation room, and constantly beat me. They threatened to kill me, put me in a car and dump me up where a lot of Catholics had been dumped by loyalist paramilitaries at this time. At this time, 1973, the loyalist organisations were killing Catholics, and what they were saying to me is that's what I was going to finish up with, up on a hill with a bullet in the head.
The Shankill, a working-class loyalist district of Belfast, where paramilitary organisations such as the UDA, Ulster Defence Association, and the UVF, Ulster Volunteer Force, are based.
I was sentenced to life imprisonment, and the judge recommended that I would serve no less than 20 years in 1966 for UVF activity. Suffice to say that would cover it. And I came out of prison on the 13th of December 1984, having served 18.5 years in prison.
Gusty Spence,
Well, I can
former leader of the UVF.
My aims were that I had been in the British Army for a considerable period of time, and I had taken an oath in the British Army to defend Her Majesty against enemies foreign and domestic. And the Irish Republican Army, in my estimation in those days, were domestic enemies, and I seen that oath as a continuation of my service. And that is why I joined the Ulster Volunteer Force, to ensure that Northern Ireland remained British. There has been a constant war since the plantation times. Irish nationalism has always manifested itself through protest of arms. And unfortunately, after all the looting and booting and shooting that has went on in Northern Ireland, unfortunately, they haven't wised up that it's not going to achieve anything. It's only dialogue will achieve progress in Northern Ireland.
So I didn't see the violent side of it as any big problem. Then I knew this was a war, and if this was peaceful times, there is no way that I'd been in that situation. I'm not a murderer, and I'm not a terrorist. I was a political prisoner and a soldier, you know, and there's just anything the British dish up to me, propaganda-wise, to try and label me as a terrorist. Or as some sort of a maniac for carrying a bomb, like, just won't work, because this is a war situation, and that's the only under the only circumstances that I would have done, carried out that type of operation.
Every August throughout Northern Ireland, there are demonstrations to commemorate the events of August 9th, 1971. On that day, in dawn raids, hundreds of nationalists were arrested and interned, some for many years, without charge or trial. Certain internees were tortured, which subsequently led the European Court of Human Rights in Strasbourg to condemn London for inflicting inhuman and degrading treatment on the prisoners.
I joined the British Army in January 1976. And I mean, the reason why I joined, I think, is the same reason as why many other people from this area join. To escape from the dole queues. There's nothing up here for many people. I've always said that there's three reasons why a lot of young lads join the army. One, because they want a career. Two, to escape from the dole queues. And three, because they've been taken in by the glossy magazines with promise travel abroad, Hong Kong and what have you. But I joined in 76, I came out in January 79. I was back on the dole after that. The exotic and wonderful countries with 6 weeks exercise in Kenya, 4 months on the streets of Belfast, and a week out in Edinburgh Castle. You know.
Bobby Harker, a former British soldier from Newcastle in the north of England.
On my father's side was pitmen, on my mother's side they were soldiers, and there's no pits, they've closed down the pits up here and everything. But the first thing that hits you when you arrive in Belfast is the atrocious, appalling conditions in which the Irish working class people have to put up with. And I mean, this is in Protestant areas such as the Shankill, as well as like on the Falls and the Ballymurphy and them areas and that. We were told in training that you've got to keep your eyes open and you're looking up at windows and whatever, but sometimes when you walk in the streets, you're just looking around at these conditions, you know. So that was the first thing that hit me.
Ballymurphy, a nationalist district of West Belfast. Unemployment, 80%.
Well, on the 4th of November 1971, the paratroopers came into my district and with a lot of aggression and put everyone under house arrest. I'm the mother of 11 children. My youngest child was 5 years old at that time, which meant that 9 of my children, my husband and myself, were put into one room under house arrest with a soldier put in every doorway to make sure no one got in or out. The last thing I ever saw was one young man having his head beat off an army tank when a paratrooper stepped right in front of my window and fired a rubber bullet directly into my face. And that was in front of my young family. Well, I was taken to hospital and my eyes were so badly damaged that they had to be removed. 16 people have been killed by this plastic bullet. This is a lethal weapon which has been used in the streets of Belfast and Northern Ireland. And of 16 victims, 7 of those have been children under the age of 14 years of age, the youngest child being 11 years old. And all in non-riot situations. And I tried for a long time to have this soldier brought into courts, but I just couldn't do it. So I feel a big sense of injustice has been done. Now, the Northern Ireland office awarded me compensation financially. And I cried the day I got that because it wasn't what I wanted.
My mission is very, very simple and very wide. But mostly I can say that it is to protect life of all the people living in this country, property, to detect crime, to preserve peace. And of course, to fight against terrorism and to endeavor to defeat terrorism where possible.
Babe,
Of course, in the case of terrorism, it is difficult for policemen to receive information. As all police forces throughout the world, we have to work on information. In this case, it's not forthcoming. Can I compare this to a fish living in good waters? The fish can live and feed itself in good waters. Take away oxygen from it. It will have to die. It will have to come to the surface. Unfortunately, there are a minority of people who support terrorism. And because they continue to support terrorism, the terrorist can hide, survive, eat and sleep peacefully.
Maggie Thatcher says, and what do we say? Fuck Maggie Thatcher. Where are you, mate? She's a put that. Stephen, what did you say? Who's Maggie Thatcher like?
It started off with a riot, but who thought it would get so bad? I've seen all sorts. It made me sick. And justice, they call that justice? What hope is there for our child? So I rang the confidential telephone to give the wee lad a future.
Good evening. The special car number plate said to make British service personnel in West Germany easy targets for the IRA ought to be scrapped. It's thought the British soldier shot dead in Ostend 11 days ago was picked out by his distinctive registration plates.
Well, the Secretary of State today condemned the outrages, saying he was deeply distressed. Mr. King called on the security forces and the public to be vigilant. He urged people to come forward with information.
We have to squeeze out the evil pus that makes up that septic boil of terrorism in every way we can.
Dance to your shadow and it's good to be living, lad. Dance to your shadow and that's what the better need. Dance to your shadow and it's good to be living, lad. Dance to your shadow and that's what the better need. Horo, haradara horo, haradara horo, haradara hingi handan. Horo, haradara horo, haradara horo, haradara hingi handan. Hen, hen, haradara hen, hen, haradara hen, hen, haradara hen, haradara ro. Hen, hen, haradara hen, hen, haradara hen, hen, haradara hen, haradara ro. There are chills in the river water, pools in the river water, pools in the river and the river calls him.
It depends where I meet them and stuff like that. Usually, wherever I am at any particular time, I have a cover story. Why I'm there, I'm working, I'm on holidays, I'm in that type of situation that I'm always have a reason to be in a particular place at any time.
Paddy McIntyre, a nationalist from Donegal in the Irish Republic. In March 1978, at 19 years of age, he was condemned to 14 years imprisonment, accused of ambushing British troops. In September 1983, with 37 other militants, he escaped from Longkesh prison. Thereafter, he has been on the run, hunted by the security forces throughout Ireland, north and south.
But what keeps you going is the support which you get on the ground. People won't open the doors. I mean, how you survive, basically, is that the people on the ground, they have to feed you, they have to clothe you, and they have to give you a bed to sleep on. And there's many people willing to do that for it. I was very surprised by many people in Ireland was willing to do that. Now when I talk about Ireland, I'm talking about Ireland as a whole. And, but it's rough. I mean, it's annoying that I can't go back up to Donegal, walk up to my own house where I was born and reared, and call in to see the family.
Every August, the children in the nationalist districts construct huge bonfires that are set alight on August 9th at midnight to mark the anniversary of the internments of 1971.
Start.
And I was the last man of the last patrol. I was walking backwards when there was one of the lads on the other side, when the other soldier says, "Oh, Bob, you're going to walk into the back of the car." Quickly turned round, like, you know. He says, "What I'll do is," he says, "I'll face the rear, you face the front, get past this obstacle, and then we'll take up my normal positions." I says, "Right, I'll give us the signal." And it was just as I turned, I mean, the first thing I remember was sort of like blacking out, seeing it like a red spark in front of us, like, and quickly thinking, you know what's going on. Light travels faster than sound. That crack. By that time, I was busy wheeling over, and the very first thought I remember came to my mind was, "Oh God, it's me!" Like, you know, it's the first thing I said. I hit the deck, and I was feeling around. By this time, the soldiers had scattered. The gunman fired again, and it ricocheted off the road while I moved in. I was shaking, but I was on my feet again, and we went to the gunman's position, which was in Dermot Hill. And I had to laugh at this, as we took up defensive position where the gunman was, and in the garden next to this was an old woman and an old man, and the old woman was like sort of sitting knitting, and the old man was reading, and they were facing right where the gunman would have been, like, you know. And we shouted across. We says, "Did you say anything?" Like, never saw a thing. Nowhere, like, you know.
I've had enough and down, you know. Gonna start to sing. They're very
Very best, very best,
yeah, what I do.
In 1976, the British government revoked political prisoner status. In Long Kesh, Brendan Hughes led the resistance against this move. As the years went by, conditions steadily deteriorated within the prisons. Finally, in 1980, as a last resort, the decision was taken to hunger strike.
Obviously, it was a traumatic experience to go through at that time. It was a major decision that I had to take. I'd been in prison for over 6 years before I eventually went on hunger strike. When I did go on hunger strike, I didn't think I was going to survive it. Right? I believed that I was going to die. I sent a visit out for my father with a journalist. He got to the question where he asked me, did I think I was going to die? And my father was sitting there in the visit with me. And I looked around and seen the expression on my father's face when I answered the question that I did believe that we were going to die, that the British government was not going to give in to our demands until there was death in the jail. And when I answered the question, my father, who was a very hard, very strong, very solid type person, I'd never seen cry before, actually broke down and cried on the visit. That brought home to me just the suffering of what people were going through on the outside.
In 1980, Brendan Hughes and 6 Irish prisoners were on hunger strike for 53 days before an agreement was reached with London. When this agreement broke down, Bobby Sands led the second hunger strike. This time, 10 young nationalists were to die.
Once upon a time there was Irish ways and Irish laws, villages of Irish blood, waking to the morning, waking to the morning. From the land the soldiers came, started centuries of shame, but they could not make us turn. We are a river flowing, we're a river flowing. Again, again the soldiers came, burnt our houses, stole our grain, shot the farmers in their fields, working for a living. We have been down. The secret of the water sound has kept the spirit of a man above the pain descending, above the pain descending. Today the struggle carries on. I wonder will I live so long to see the gates being opened up to a people and their freedom, a people and their freedom.
What actually happened was that we had pulled up here at the back entrance in a lorry. We were dressed as work personnel wearing hard hats, and we had 150 pounds of explosives in a dustbin. We offloaded the explosives from the dustbin, carried it up those steps and into the main building, where we placed it where we felt that it would be or give a maximum structural damage.
Jerry Doherty,
There were a number of
Derry
workers
City
present in the
Councillor,
building at the time,
member of
and
Sinn
they
Féin,
said that
the political wing of the IRA.
and into the vehicle and drive away in the vehicle. Because of the heavy traffic, it would be near impossible. We decided at this stage of the game to release all the work personnel and to fade away out of the picture amidst all the work people. So it would be hard to distinguish between actual work people and bogus work people. Leaving the bomb with some 40 minutes on the clock to allow time for the evacuate the immediate area from around the building, which they did, and the bomb exploded, causing maximum damage to them. Well, the Guildhall at that time was the seat of power for the unionist gerrymandered corporation. Bear in mind that this is a national city, and it was controlled by unionists on a gerrymandered basis. So to the nationalist people of the city, it represented everything that was inherently wrong in this state.
Hi, Celia. No, you're all right.
I'm doing a can't tell me, I'm English, you know.
Just because you're English doesn't make you a bad person.
Well, in 1973, I was convicted of shooting a British soldier and blown up the Guildhall, which is now the seat of the council. And I'm now, as you say, a city councillor. I don't see any great contradiction between being, in the same building sort of thing that I blew up. It was a popular action received popularly by the people of the city. It was making a political statement, and I feel that being elected in 1985 to the City Council as a Sinn Féin councillor is also making the same political statement. And I see that both strands of political agitation and armed resistance is one and the same struggle, and that they must complement each other in order for the struggle to be successful.
I met a young man on youth unemployment. He said, in Derry, I have no enjoyment. I really do not know what that boy meant. Sure, everyone's unemployed here. Artists and songwriters sit up in their attics. The libraries are full of mad quiz fanatics. The chapels are bunged up with young charismatics. The door queues get longer each year. They get longer each year. The brew queues get longer each year. Chorus! You may travel worldwide, but it cannot be denied. There is no place like the Bogside. I like the Bogside. We just love that Anglian regiment. They are so eager to be our friends. You know they visit us all earth. They must be supermen to do it. I always knew it. Must be all them special powers. You may travel worldwide, but it cannot be denied. There is no place like the Bogside. I like the Bogside. I love the Bogside. You'd like the Bogside.
What are you asking me for?
Well, you're not really all direct a bit here, you know.
You ask the film people, don't ask me.
You're showing them around.
What?
You're showing them around.
What do you think you do the film is?
Show the average everyday Scotty patrolling through the Bogside, is it?
Showing the occupational forces at their fucking task.
At their best, you mean?
Yeah, at their worst.
Okay. Right.
So toddle on now.
So we'll move on now,
Yeah. Have a horrible day.
In the countryside, the British Army operates almost exclusively in helicopters. Mobile patrols, even in armoured vehicles, are extremely dangerous. IRA ambushes can easily be organised without endangering civilians. Near the tiny village of Omagh, an IRA mine has exploded under a tourist bus. The passengers, however, were not tourists. They were British soldiers in civilian clothes. 8 dead, 30 injured.
I think that how it will be resolved is that Britain, by declaring her intention to withdraw, opens up a different ball game, as it were, and that loyalists begin to realise that that Britain was basically using them as a pawn in their game to maintain control over this part of Ireland, and that loyalists will see that their best interests are served in a united country, and working together with Catholics and Protestants alike, working together to help build this country and to put it back on its feet, to build a completely new Ireland.
Doing what, filming where?
In Belfast also.
Belfast?
Yeah.
Oh, for a documentary?
Yeah. Sorry?
Documentary?
Yeah.
French television.
You got any ID?
Yes.
May I have some ID then?
Take them.
Take the car?
Take them, just put them in the skip.
Yeah, no problem,
I take it you've all got forms of identification, yes?
You just blow up people with bombs, let us say,
shopping centres, kids, women. They're good at that. They're very brave when it comes to things like that. But when it comes to fighting like the soldiers, they hide. So they're not so good at that.
They just broke up the car last Saturday as well.
Or they'll blow up soldiers that are travelling in a bus. Or they haven't got any arms on them. Or off duty. I mean, that is them all over. Too cowardice.
I would love if it was some other way. I'd love so not another Republican would get killed, not another civilian would get killed, and not even another British soldier in RECMA. That if it was another way to go about achieving or getting rid of the British occupation from Ireland. It's annoying that the Dublin government has come to a stage now where they're just aiding totally what the British are doing in Ireland, and they're willing to cooperate fully with everything they're doing, even to the extent of passing information which could cause the life of volunteers getting killed or Republicans getting killed. Take for example Gibraltar, that the Dublin guards were able to give the names of the 3 people who were killed there that night. And I mean, the question must be asked, who passed the information on that got the 3 unarmed volunteers killed in Gibraltar?
Sean Savage, Danny McCann, Mairead Farrell, 3 militants of the IRA killed in March 1988 on Gibraltar by members of the British Secret Service.
I was just about here. We were preparing to put the body of Mairead Farrell into the ground. There was a large group of people here, the families of the dead volunteers. When I heard a bomb going off somewhere down there, at the time I didn't know what was happening. I just heard the explosion. There was panic. I jumped over that railing and ran towards the place where the bombs were coming from. At the same time, the large group of young people continually chased the man. The man was throwing bombs, and as the bomb came towards the crowd ducked. I couldn't believe it when I seen so many people running towards a man, firing a gun and throwing bombs at them. They continually chased him until they eventually caught him at the very bottom down there. I think, again, it's a symptom of British rule in Ireland. The guy was throwing bombs at us, shooting at us, and he didn't know why, right? Either through bigotry or hatred of some sort. I think he's a victim. He's as much as a victim as the 3 people he killed that day.
Any regrets?
No way. Getting caught. That's a real regret, you know. But as regards sacrificing anything, if that's even what you could call it, you know, no. Like, I mean, because I think everybody here has a sacrifice to be made, you know. That's what this war is about. you know, leaving your family for a while or whatever it may be. You know, there's people who are giving up their lives, and whether it be spending their lives in jail or like Mairead, Sean and Dan who are dead, you know, they've given far more than any of us could even anticipate, you know, and their families have sacrificed so much, so I've no regrets about anything I've done.
I can do the splits, I can do the twirl around just like this. The Queen takes a courtesy, the King takes a bow. The boys go, the girls go pow.
In August 1988, an escapee from Longkesh, Robert Russell, was arrested by the police of Southern Ireland and handed over to the British authorities in Northern Ireland. In nationalist districts, this extradition provoked immediate reactions.
Move right back in, please.
Quick.
Hiya. Here, hello,
Once upon a time there was Irish ways and Irish laws, villages of Irish blood, waking to the morning, waking to the morning. Soldiers came, started centuries of shame, but they could not make us turn. We are